Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you spending some of your Wednesday evening with me. Particularly excited for this Tucson Co-op. It's our third time in Tucson, and 2023 is going to be a really great year to go solar for lots of reasons. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to start by saying this is a Solar 101. So I hope most of this information is new and useful to you. Some of it may be old news to you, but that's okay. We are all here learning together, including me. My name is Adrian Keller, and I'm the Arizona Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. I've been with Sun for just a little over a year, and I've been in community organizing of some shape or another for more than 4 years now. I'm sorry I don't have an equally awesome picture of my colleague, but Vincent Yurkovich is also here with us tonight. He will be answering some of your questions as we go throughout the presentation. So appreciate you being here, Vincent. And before we get started, hopefully everybody can hear me. Your audio and speakers are working fine. We are in webinar mode, so everybody is muted. If you have a question, please type it throughout in the chat feature throughout the presentation. And I'll also pause briefly in between sections in case there's any questions we want to spend some time digging into. Also, this webinar is being recorded. We'll be sending a copy to folks who RSVP'd. First, though, I want to take a moment to thank our partners. The work we do here in Tucson is not possible without collaborative community partnerships. We've been able to work closely for the second time with Sustainable Tucson, Physicians for Social Responsibility in Arizona, as well as the Grand Canyon chapter of the Sierra Club. Thank you to our partners. We really appreciate everything you do for this co-op. Speaking of community organizing, Sun is going to be in Tucson for the Tucson Festival of Books. It's going to be my first time attending, so I'm really excited about it. And I saw Ben Need join us, and I know he would love to tell us a little bit more about this festival. Vincent, go ahead and unmute him.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, Ben.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, very quickly, the Tucson Festival of Books, one of the largest weekend gatherings in Tucson. 100,000 people attend over the period of the weekend. And this year, Saturday, March 5th and Sunday, or I'm sorry, Saturday, March 4th and Sunday, March 5th, 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., both days. And the area we're going to be in is Science City. It's at the east end of the campus mall. And it's under the banner of basically advocacy that I've done for years down here. The name Tucson Plugs In. And if you go to the Tucson Festival of Books website, Science City, and peruse through the organizations, that'll be us. There will be a lot of folks from Sun coming down to Phoenix. I'm thrilled about that. I'll have my electric car there and some interesting small scale solar devices, some panels and some interesting gadgets and batteries all associated with that. And I'm also getting a lot of cooperation nationally from Rewiring America. So it's a whole solar and electrification theme that we're wanting to present. And I know the Sun folks in particular are going to be populating the area with us on the Sunday, the March 5th. I don't know what else to tell you other than I guess I'm the one who's soliciting volunteers, and I'll put my email contact in the comment section or the chat this evening. And if you didn't get it this evening, you can get back hold of Adrian, and he'll be able to provide that information. But yeah, looking for volunteers, folks that can sit at the table. And there is a rather structured process when we're dealing with the Festival of Books. The information will actually go through them in terms of assignment of the hours and slots and so forth. And I'll be dispersing all that information once again. Really hope you can all make it. And it's an exciting time, I think. Putting Solar United Neighbors in a more direct spotlight for all the cool things they've been doing here in Tucson. And I don't know what else to say about that. Adrian, anything else I can add?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely planning on bringing some materials to hand out to people. But when you say 100,000 people attending, we're definitely going to need to make sure we're stocking up. All right. Thanks so much, Ben. Let us move forward. So if you're new and haven't heard of us before, Solar United Neighbors is a membership-based national nonprofit organization. We have field staff in 12 states, as well as DC and Puerto Rico, and we organize primarily around solar policy issues. We ourselves are not a solar installer. In fact, we are vendor and financer neutral. We focus on community advocacy, solar education, and outreach. In brief, our mission is to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. So Solar United Neighbors began way back in 2007 with the Mount Pleasant Neighborhood Co-op in Washington, DC. Pictured there is our founder, Anya, and to her left is her son, Walter. To her right is Walter's friend, Diego. Walter and Diego, this was back in 2007, saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth, and they came home and said, Mom, we have to do something. We need to go solar to do our part. Anya looked into it and quickly found out that going solar wasn't so easy. They were getting lots of different information from different companies. There were tax credits and financing options, and just not a lot of easy to read front-facing consumer information. As Anya began to figure out this process, she thought, hey, we may as well bring our neighbors along as we begin to untangle this rooftop solar process. Maybe they could even get a bulk discount on the panels, and it will be easier if everyone worked collaboratively. Her son and his friend ended up going door to door and recruiting 50 of their neighbors to help work through this complicated process together. Throughout, 45 homes ended up actually going solar, and that was really the first kind of Solar United Neighbors co-op. After that, Anya started getting calls from people across the country who were interested in organizing similar co-ops, and we've been growing ever since. Since 2007, we've been able to help over 7,000 families go solar. All combined, that's more than 65 megawatts across the states we operate in. And that's saved more than 850,000 tons of CO2, some numbers that we're really proud of. We've been in Arizona since 2019. In that time, we've been able to help close to 400 people go solar. We just crossed over our 3 megawatt mark in Arizona, which was really great to see. Folks who have gone solar with us have invested more than $9 million in the local solar economy, and that's going to save them more than $15 million over the next 25 years. In Arizona, these folks who've gone solar have helped create more than 54 jobs in the state and offset more than 40,000 metric tons of CO2. So we help lots of people go solar in the co-op, but also individually. That includes homeowners, small businesses, nonprofits, houses of worship, a list that's constantly growing. We also bring people together. That includes this information session, our solar co-ops. We have solar tours, happy hours, lobbying days. We provide resources to help solar enthusiasts effectively advocate for their rights. And that covers policies like community solar, making sure HOA members have access to rooftop solar, fighting for fair solar tax credits, and so many other important policies that affect access to rooftop solar all across the US, but many of them right here in Arizona. Before we go any further in the presentation, I want to take a moment to address the inequities in our current energy system. Communities of color bear an unfair share of the costs of energy production, but receive fewer benefits. Families of color are disproportionately harmed by higher utility bills and shutoffs, and on top of that, housing discrimination is a barrier to home ownership and thus solar ownership. When Sun started with a group of economically and racially diverse neighbors back in 2007, they focused on solar because it helped people pay their electric bills. It also helped them stay in their homes at a time when DC was being gentrified quickly and the whole country was in the middle of a financial crisis. Rooftop solar lets communities invest locally, it creates good local paying jobs, and brings control of the energy system within our reach. And we are working towards a new energy system that everybody can participate in. That's what we believe is an equitable system. Got three basic things to cover today: solar technology, and then solar economics and some of the financing behind that. And then we'll dig into the details of how this particular co-op will work. So first, solar technology. I'm going to remind everybody this is a Solar 101. So how do solar panels work? When we're talking about solar panels today, we're talking about solar photovoltaics, or PV cells. This is the technology that converts solar energy, sunlight, into usable electricity. The majority of today's market is PV solar. You may have heard of solar thermal technology or solar hot water heaters. Those things still exist, but they used to be a little bit more popular. Today's PV market makes up the vast majority, and that's what we'll be focusing on today's PV. So a solar panel is made up of individual solar cells that are mostly made out of silicon. They're usually about 60 to 70 per panel, sandwiched in between these glass frames. And the panels are fairly large. They're about 6 feet by 3.5 feet. So you definitely need to have some space to be able to put them on your roof. But when you put these solar panels together, we call that a solar array. Let's talk a little bit about how the system gets attached to your roof. Usually they're going to get attached with the racking system. What you need to know is there's generally a racking solution for most kinds of roof, and we'll cover some specifics, but this is pictured here as sort of that typical asphalt shingle roof where the rails will get screwed into the roof and then the solar panels are clipped onto those beams. If you have a flat roof, your installer may ballast the panels down, basically weighing them down, or the installer may use a pitch pocket system, sort of pitches the solar panel up to angle it so it's at the most ideal position to get the most sunlight. And if you're interested in ground-mounted solar, that can be an option if you have lots of space available, but you're definitely going to need plenty of space available. This can be a solution for folks with lots of property, especially if maybe their roof isn't in an ideal location or shape. Particularly, we see this a lot with commercial applications as well. Definitely is a little bit more expensive of a solution to solar because you have to build that system that's going to hook it into the ground, and there's just a variety of additional fixed costs associated with that, but can certainly be an option for some folks. And you're going to need an inverter to take that direct current energy from your solar panel to invert it into alternating current so that the appliances and outlets in your home can use the electricity. There's essentially two types of inverters, and you don't need to know which inverter you want unless you really want to dig into the details. Your installer is going to probably have a preference based on the solar system and your type of roof. But excuse me, the string inverter is great for kind of a simple system where the modules are all in one or two arrays. String inverters will be fed through one central panel and all the panels together through a central box. It's good for simple installation where there's not a lot of shade. They'll come with DC optimizers, so even if a panel is shaded or producing less, it doesn't take down the efficiency of the entire system. Microinverters basically invert the energy on the individual panel level. They make the system work really efficiently. And again, but your installer will probably have preference based on the type of installation. They'll talk you through whatever options you have. To connect your home's electricity, it's usually a pretty simple connection to your electric box. Most homes don't need an upgrade to be able to handle solar, but some do, particularly older homes. We always ask installers when they bid on our co-op what the pricing will be if somebody needs an electrical panel upgrade. And also, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, there are rebates available for some people should they need that upgrade. Some terminology throughout the presentation. You'll hear us use a lot of K's and W's. So a kilowatt is a unit of power. It's used to describe the size of a system in 1,000-watt increments. So 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. A system made up of 10 350-watt panels. We'd call that a 4.2 kilowatt system. Kilowatt hours are a unit of energy. So that is what you see on your electricity bill. It's used to describe the amount of electricity that your system produces, also how much electricity you consume from the utility. In Arizona, the average installations are about 7 to 8 kilowatts. So to see how all of this fits together, your solar panels beautifully attached to your roof here, they're going to absorb that sunlight. That electricity is going to flow through an inverter, which is going to invert it from DC to AC, direct current to alternating current. And everything's going to be fed through your electrical panel. Kind of think of this as the brains of the whole operation. So they're going to direct electricity where it needs to go in your home. And they'll also feed electricity out of your home if you're producing in excess. Your utility meter, of course, is reading any electricity you're purchasing from the utility. But when you have solar, you'll have a bidirectional meter. So it's also going to be reading and measuring any excess electricity that you feed back out onto the grid. You may have heard of net metering before. Net metering is a really important policy. It's been the driver of rooftop solar in this country for many years. It tracks the flow of electricity to and from you, the customer. And when you're generating more power than you're using, that extra energy goes back to the utility and is counted on your meter for credit. Now, historically, we'd receive a 1-to-1 ratio. So you'd be receiving the exact same rate as you'd be paying to the utility. Unfortunately, that system is going away. TEP does not have net metering anymore. Instead, we have a system called export rate credits. So instead of getting the price that you would have paid for that 1-to-1 exchange with net metering, now you get a set rate per kilowatt hour from the utility. And unfortunately, it's a little bit lower than what you would have gotten credited under the previous rules, but you are still getting compensated for that solar that you're feeding back to the grid. TEP has 2 solar rate plans for new solar customers. So a time of use plan and a time of use with demand charges. So you'll see here in all of these, there's a little bit of a range between the prices of electricity. That's because the price is going to depend both on the time of day and also the time of year. So time of use plan, you'll have your on-peak energy charges, and that refers to energy you're using between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays. Off-peak energy is anything you're using outside of those hours. A demand charge is a single monthly charge based on your hourly usage during on-peak hours. So the time of use plan doesn't have that, demand one does. Your solar export credit, 781, that's what TEP pays you for any electricity you're feeding back to the grid. And then solar owners, you will have a $10 monthly charge. So the demand time of use charge, it can be advantageous if you're able to really spread out your use of large electric appliances during low cost off-peak hours. But bottom line, most folks in Tucson tend to go with the basic time of use plan. Even though the electricity charges are a little bit higher, your solar panels are able to cover most of that energy demand during the day and thus decrease your overall bill. Whereas it's more difficult for solar panels to offset, reduce, or minimize that demand charge. Just a really rough example of kind of what this looks like. You'll be getting charged for your on-peak energy used. Amount here is $26. Your off-peak energy used out here is $61. You'll have various monthly fixed charges, including taxes. And then that $35 figure in red, that's your solar export credit. So that's being credited to your bill, resulting in a net cost of about $75. This is just a total example figures. So what makes a good roof for solar? The orientation of your house is really important here. Facing south is always the best because you're going to get the most amount of sun exposure and be able to generate the most amount of power. Facing west can also work really well. If you're thinking about kind of the goals of owning solar is to offset your electricity usage as much as possible. So if you have solar panels that are facing west, you're going to be generating lots of energy during those evening hours as the sun is setting. And so that like 5 to 7 hour where it's on peak hours, electricity is more expensive. Having west facing solar can help kind of offset that as well. But generally you'll see solar panels positioned on a south facing roof. You want to make sure you don't have a really big tree or some other structure that is shading a lot of the roof where you're going to be putting the solar panels. If that's the case, you may want to consider trimming the tree, or if that's a tree you're really attached to, then maybe solar isn't going to work, or you maybe want to pursue ground mounted solar, but that's certainly a consideration. And I also mentioned you're going to need enough space on your roof to install the solar panels. Like I mentioned, they're about 6 feet by 3.5 feet. So you definitely need to have a decent amount of space on your roof to put them next to one another. And also just like to note here that if you sign up for the solar co-op, we at Sun do a free satellite roof review to see if your roof is a good site for solar. Now, what happens when the power goes out? If there's a really heavy monsoon storm or a dust storm, we've seen those before, and the grid goes down. When the grid goes down, your solar will shut off. And this is an automatic safety mechanism built into the inverter to shut down the solar from being fed back onto any live electricity wires. And it's a safety mechanism really built in for utility workers to make sure they're not going to be impacted by any extra energy being fed onto the line, so they can fix the issue when power is going out. But if you want to have power when the grid goes down, you might want to consider battery storage. A few reasons to consider adding battery storage. If you have frequent utility outages and you need a source of backup power, battery can be a really great option. If you want to be able to power critical loads at home in the event of an outage, think like medical equipment or other things that would be of great concern if you didn't have electricity. For general emergency or disaster preparedness, and oftentimes people can program their batteries to offset some of their energy used during peak periods. So I've seen lots of folks program their batteries to kick on during those first evening hours when the sun sets, when electricity is still really expensive. Then it will recharge during the day when the sun is up in the morning, and it's programmed to kind of offset some of that use during the day. So that can be a really great tool for folks as well. But generally, we steer people towards batteries for the sake of emergency preparedness and some of that peace of mind during an outage. If you really want to get into some more details about battery storage, we put together a great guide on our website. Be happy to email it to anybody, of course, who's interested as well, but it's there at solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. So here's kind of an example of battery storage application. So the Johnsons, they have a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery bank. It's fully recharged by their 6 kilowatt solar array during the day. And if the sun isn't shining, they'd have about a full day of power with their battery. When the grid goes down, they run their refrigerator, their microwave, some lights and outlets, their cable modem, and a small window air conditioner. They don't power their stove, their dryer, or their electric water heater. The energy demand is just a little too high, and it's just either the battery is not going to be able to meet that, or it's just going to drain it in a matter of a few minutes. So this is what they're able to power when the grid goes down, but not quite everything unless you get multiple battery packs. All right, so some general FAQs that we often see. First, warranties. Typical installation is going to come with 3 types of warranties. So first, you've got a power production warranty. Typically, it's about, power production warranty is going to guarantee that your system is producing at a rate of effectiveness that it was on day one. So for example, if you had a 25-year power production warranty, it might say that at year 25, your solar panels are going to be producing at least 90% that they were on day one. The parts warranty, that's going to cover all the panels, the inverters, and any other physical materials associated with the installation. And then you'll have a labor warranty that covers any roof penetrations or work done by the installation company. It can vary, but we usually see anywhere from 2 to 10 years for labor warranties. Homeowners insurance, when you add solar to your roof, you'll definitely want to call your insurance company and let them know that you're adding solar. Most people don't see an increase in their insurance rates. And if you do, I would shop around or at least ask why the case. Solar panels actually do protect your roof from hail and rain and some other environmental factors. So many insurance companies actually consider them an asset. Maintenance. Most solar systems are pretty low maintenance. They're not no maintenance, but they're very low maintenance. Normal precipitation is going to keep them clean. But if there's been a really large dust storm, you may want to hose them off to make sure they're working as efficiently as possible. Every few years, it's good to have a visual inspection done to make sure that they're producing at the highest level that they can. It's really cool now that most inverters have really great tracking that you can just pull up on your iPhone or your iPad and see exactly how much your panels are producing and alert you if there's any issues. How long do the systems last? Like I said, most panels are warranted for 25 years, but if you take care of them, they'll definitely keep producing longer than that. I've seen panels on roofs producing in excess of 30 years. Their efficiency is going to go down over time, but definitely at least 25 years. If you have an HOA, in Arizona, we actually have a law in the books that says an HOA cannot block you from adding solar to your home. They can put in rules and regulations that may require some sort of design review for the HOA board, but there's been actually a Supreme Court decision in Arizona that says they cannot outright stop you from installing solar. Finally, if you're in a historic district, I would just encourage you to check the local guidelines. They're going to vary from district to district and from city to city. I know in Phoenix, some of them have requirements where you can have solar panels, but they just can't be visible from the road. So I would just encourage you to check the historic district to make sure that you're not doing anything to jeopardize that historic status. All right, I'm going to pause there quickly for a glass of water. And Vincent, if there's any questions that we want to take some time answering out loud.
Yeah, if anyone wants to raise their hand, you can do that on the bottom of your screen. If not, you can type your questions in the chat.
Excellent. I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I will keep going. Oops. All right, let's get into the economics of solar then. So this is a graph that is always really exciting for me to look at. Solar is increasingly affordable. Costs have come down a lot over the past 40 years, but even over just the last 10 years, they've come down pretty significantly. This here chart says 73% since 2010. Solar isn't just a boutique or a specialty project. It has a pretty good return on investment, particularly with the full 30% federal tax credit. Solar has a really good return on investment and is more and more affordable. This is part of the reason why solar is still the cost that it is today. So this is an estimation. Every solar company is going to organize themselves a little bit differently, but this is generally what we tend to see with solar companies in Arizona. So you've got your system components at the bottom, that part in yellow, and you can see that the prices of the systems themselves have come down quite a bit. Labor costs are relatively similar. But those soft costs make up a huge portion of why solar costs what it is today. And that includes lots of things, but primarily marketing and advertising. So we see sometimes solar companies can spend thousands of dollars per customer just to find that customer, market to the right people, and get to a signed contract. Versus with Solar United Neighbors, we collect 50 to 100 folks. We educate them and present a list to an installer, and we charge $600 per signed contract. So it's a pretty good bargain for installers, and they're able to pass some of those soft costs and advertising savings on to you. So one of the main benefits of the co-op. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal solar tax credit has been extended and expanded. So back to the full 30% for the next 9 years. After 2032, it'll start to step down again, but really, really excited to see that 30% tax credit again. We know it's going to help a lot of people go solar this year. Speaking of the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a big bill. There's a lot in there. Of course, at Sun, we're mostly focused with the areas that impact solar, but I did just want to point out a couple more areas in the IRA. So there has been a 30% tax credit on battery storage, but only if you purchased it in conjunction with a solar system. Now there's a 30% standalone tax credit for batteries. So if you already have solar or you're getting solar this year and maybe you want a battery in a few years from now, you can still get the full 30% tax credit on that. You can also get up to $1,000 tax credit for installing a residential EV charging station in your home. And I'd just like to note that in all of our Sun co-ops, in addition to solar, co-op members can purchase battery systems and EV chargers from whichever installer is selected. And finally, if you need a panel upgrade, depending on your income, you can get up to $4,000 in rebates for an electrical panel upgrade. And like I said, there's a lot more in this bill. There's rebates and incentives for electric stoves, heat pumps, electric hot water heaters, a lot more. We're not going to dig into that here, but if that's something of interest to you, we'd be happy to follow up with some resources. In Arizona, we also have a 25% state tax credit, caps out at $1,000 though. So most folks are just able to claim that $1,000. There's also a pretty cool law where if solar increases the value of your property taxes, it's not going to increase your tax liability. And we do not pay sales tax on solar panels in Arizona. All right, so just to give you a rough example of what kind of prices we're looking at. So I want to say first, this is a sample based on an average of pricing we see in Arizona at about $275 a watt. And we put an example here for a 3.4 kilowatt system and a 6.8 kilowatt system. Like I said, the average system size in Arizona is about 7 kilowatts. So for the 3.4 kilowatt system size, at that price of $275 a watt, you'd be looking at just over $9,000 for the cost of the system. Take off that 30% federal tax credit and the $1,000 from the state of Arizona, your net cost is about $5,500. After year one, we'd estimate you'd save about $711. After year 10, more than $7,000, and after year 25, over $19,000, resulting in a net profit of about $13,700. And then I'm not going to run through the breakdown of the other size system there, but you can get a sense of what kind of pricing we're looking at, what sort of tax credits applied look at, and then some of the savings you can see from your electricity usage. All right, financing. So there's a few different ways to finance your system. Of course, if you're able to pay cash up front, that's going to be the highest upfront cost, but also maximize your savings. We'll talk a little bit more about loans in the next slide. Third-party ownership. This refers to power purchase agreements, PPAs, or leases, where a third party actually owns the solar panels, and then you're leasing the energy from them. We at Sun, we don't tend to rent third-party ownership. Rather, if you're able to finance the system, it's going to maximize your savings. Will also make it a lot easier if you sell your home, if you're not leasing the solar panels. And one grant we like to make sure people are aware of is the Rural Energy for America program. This is a grant and loan option that is offered to rural businesses. It covers efficiency upgrades, including solar panels. So with loans, the important thing to know with loans is that you have your options, and we highly encourage you to shop around and find whatever rate is best for you. Many installers will offer a financing solution through their own preferred financing company. This can be a great route to go through if you like the loan product offered. Many times the financing partners installers work with are great. Sometimes they're not so great. So again, we just encourage you to shop around. Some folks very commonly will go through a home equity line of credits. You can also refinance your home and choose to include solar. I talked about installer financing companies. And then co-op members with Sun have access to the Clean Energy Credit Union, as well as the Community First Credit Union. These are national credit unions, and you only have access to them as a solar co-op member, but they tend to offer pretty great rates and lower fees. And then again, I just encourage you to check out your local bank or credit union. Many offer solar loans that can be pretty competitive with these other options. All right, and that's it for solar economics. I'm going to pause again. If there's any questions, folks would like to raise their hand and say out loud. This is my first Solar 101 of the year, and I haven't talked this long in a really long time. So I appreciate you all bearing with me and my voice today. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to section 3, how solar co-ops work. Sun has run over 300 of these co-ops now across the country, and it's become a pretty well-oiled machine that we consistently see positive results from. Some of the benefits of going solar through a co-op, first and foremost, we aggregate lots of consumers together, so everybody goes solar at the same time through a competitively selected installer. This helps you installation since the group gets a bulk deal. We also support you through the process as an unbiased vendor-neutral organization. Going solar can be a complicated and daunting process. And one of the favorite parts of my job is helping people untangle that process and make a decision that they feel really confident about. We provide expert and free technical guidance on all things solar. We help you make an informed decision that you feel confident about. And we're also going to connect you with other solar lovers in your neighborhood so you can become part of a growing movement that has a broader impact on solar. I'd like to talk through the process of the co-op and some of the timing. So we are on step 1 right now. We're learning. This is the Solar 101 webinar. Step 2, after this concludes, I hope if you're interested, you'll head to our website and sign up for the co-op. It's free to do so. It's not a commitment to go solar. And 3, if you do sign up for the co-op, I hope you'll spread the word with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, anybody who doesn't like paying a really high electricity bill. The higher the group gets, the more of an impact we can have. So we'd love some help spreading the word if you do end up joining the co-op. The 4th step is the installer selection. So I mentioned Sun as an organization, we're vendor neutral, so we don't pick the installer. It's really important for us that the homeowners, the ones who have skin in the game, are the one selecting who they'd like to work with. So once the co-op has reached 30 to 50 members, once we have critical mass, we will issue a request for proposal from local installers. They will bid on the group with a base price per watt. We are going to get all those bids back. We'll check their bids, we'll check their reviews, we'll check their references, make sure that they are of high standing in the community. We'll put all those bids together in one easy to read side-by-side spreadsheet. And then anybody in the co-op who would like to volunteer can be a part of the selection committee. And one evening, Sun will go through all of the bids with that selection committee, answer any questions folks have, and they will vote and pick one installer to work with for the group. At some point, there will be a deadline to join the co-op. I believe it's sometime in March. I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but there will be a point where we'll no longer accept signups for the co-op. Once the installer is selected, they're going to be starting to reach out to each member of the co-op. They'll design a customized proposal for your roof, but with that co-op negotiated pricing. At this point, we really hope that you feel confident enough to go forward with signing a contract. If you don't, like I said, there's no commitment, no hard feelings. You're free to walk away. The next step is installation. The exact timing of this can vary depending on the time of year, the installers who selected, status of permitting in the municipality, but the actual day of installation is really quick, but we would typically see installation begin about 2 to 3 months after you sign a contract. Could be longer though, again, depending on which installer is selected. And then finally, I'd love to come back down to Tucson to meet members of this co-op, party and celebrate some of the successes that we've been able to achieve. Like I said, I was recently in Tucson and got to meet some of our members of last year's Tucson Solar Co-op. They shared our story with us, and it was a really, really awesome opportunity. I just want to share a couple highlights of things people said about their experience with us. Marjorie and Michael Blaine said the co-op was very helpful. We did all the hard work. They got all the bids. We really felt like we had a support system. The process was great, and I was just thrilled that you all are doing this and that we found you, because it's really a lot of hard work to do it by yourself. Gwen and Malcolm Herman said it's really hard to weed through all the disinformation. Having support from the co-op made the world of difference. It gave us peace of mind and made us feel comfortable with moving forward. And finally, Deanne Barber and Robin Meln said going through the co-op was a relief because we aren't experts. It would have taken us a very long time to figure everything out. The co-op really was the way to go. It just makes sense. More people, more buying power. If you're interested, I really hope that you'll check out our website. The link to this co-op can be found at solarunitedneighbors.org/Tucson 2023. We'll also be happy to email you a link to the co-op as well. Leave that slide up for just a second, though, in case anybody is writing that down. And like I said, I'll also be sending a copy of this presentation out to folks who RSVP. Once you join the co-op, like I said, please share with your friends and neighbors. The more we grow, the more power we have. So we'd love to see, the goal for this co-op is 150. We're at about 30 right now. We launched about a week ago. So we've got a ways to go, but we've got plenty of time. So I'm excited to hit that goal. And that is the end of my presentation. Let's see.